Time for another round of overrated or underrated. I'm going to read out a list of things, and you are going to tell me if they're overrated or underrated. First up, cable-actuated hydraulic disc brakes. So this is topical because you rode across Malaysia with them.
Underrated.
Do you want to explain what they are?
Yes, it is a cable-actuated brake
Hydraulic
caliper.
disc brake.
Hydraulic with a small reservoir of hydraulic fluid inside. So it's a completely isolated system that fits onto your bike the same way any brake caliper normally would, disc brake caliper. And then a cable runs through and it just pulls, and then the liquid then somehow
This is a
squeezes the calipers.
really bad explanation.
Yeah, it's terrible, isn't it? Yeah.
All right, so there's 3 types of disc brakes. Full hydraulic ones, where there's hydraulic fluid that runs from the shifter to the caliper. As you pull the shifter, it pressurizes the caliper, which closes them on the brakes. Full hydro system, that is the expensive one. That's what all top-end bikes will have. Then you have these, where just the caliper has a fluid system and a typical gear cable, a traditional rim brake, mechanical shifter. The cable pulls the caliper, which then has a clamp on the disc, and then you've got mechanically operated disc brakes where there is zero hydraulic fluid and a cable just pulls a piston onto the brakes. Basically, full hydraulic system is the best, full cable system is the worst.
There are some good and very expensive, however, mechanical systems. Some people swear by them. They think they're really, really good, but you do have to spend quite a lot of money to get one that doesn't feel sponge as f***.
But it's still not. It's still just not in the same spectrum as a full hydraulic system.
Nah.
So, cable-actuated hydraulic disc brakes. Francis used across Malaysia. We've got them on a bike somewhere else here as well, and we've used them before. They're not cheap actually, are they?
£100 for one. So front and rear, probably just £200. If you're looking at RRPs, like about £260 for a pair.
Yeah.
However, if you factor in you don't need to use hydraulic levers, then it ends up being a massive saving for brands to use on bikes if they're doing a full build, or if you have cabled discs already and you want to upgrade to something much stronger, then it's a pretty good option. And fairly easy to install. It's just a regular cable. You already have everything else going.
They are. I agree with you. They're underrated in terms of performance. I wish they were a bit cheaper. I think they'd be more accessible then. Because
there are cheaper options from companies like Z-Race, which is a AliExpress brand, I believe, and they work pretty well as well. I think the pads aren't as good inside. If you want real peace of mind, I suppose that's what you're paying for with the TRP High Roads. Hybrid, HYRD.
Because it looks like you can get 105 hydraulic brake set, so shifters and calipers, for about 300 quid at the minute.
That's a pretty good price.
Yeah, so it's kind of this is why I don't listen. I like it. I wish it was, if they were 50 quid a caliper.
Yeah,
then it's a good upgrade.
It's an upgrade job, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's really what it is. If you already have all the rest of the stuff.
I was saying that those 105 shifters I'm looking at right now are on Merlin for 300 quid. The RRP on them is 560. So it depends whether you can actually get them cheap or not. But yeah, underrated.
Yeah, I think they're underrated. They're so good compared to the cable discs. In Malaysia, Lawrence had fully cable discs on his bike, brand new, and he was like, first ride, I can't stop. I honestly can't stop. And I was like, they'll bed in, mate. They'll bed in. It's fine. We're riding some hills today, just squeeze them really hard. They didn't get any better. They were just spongy and horrible. And luckily, Lawrence is a good bike rider, and his bike wasn't that heavy. But I was on 25 kilogram bike. Thank goodness that I had the hybrid calipers, because they really do. They feel super strong, super strong.
Next up, we have the Spring Classics. Have you read any of them? Road, not red. Road. Have you ridden any of them?
Yeah, I've ridden every single cobbled climb and section there is in Belgium and France at some point in time.
I feel like that can't possibly be true. every single cobbled road and section in 2 entire countries.
All the significant ones. All the ones that are featured in races.
Yeah.
I've done the Roubaix thing, the Flanders Sportive.
the
I rode
thing.
with Johan Mazzeo, the Lion of Flanders, and we did, it was like 10 hours of riding, and he took in every single cobbled section that he knew around Belgium. And that was incredible. The cobbles are so much bigger than you realise if you've never ridden them before. Especially Roubaix.
What were you riding on? A gravel bike?
I borrowed a specialized road bike. I borrowed a rim brake SL 5 or 4.
How did you find that on the cobbles?
It wasn't my bike, so I didn't care. But it was. I also rode like an AliExpress bike, road bike on cobbles before as well. It was fine, but I was fitter then. So I was riding pretty fast on Josh Tarling's wheel. So it was okay.
It's like cars and speed bumps. The faster you hit them,
Yeah.
the less impact it has.
You have to ride fast. You like really fast.
Did you see that Van der Poel said that he said that road bikes are not particularly suitable for Paris-Roubaix?
He said, full quote, "I don't think Paris-Roubaix cobbles are meant to be ridden on a road bike," before he then won on a road bike.
And I think that is a really good statement. And I think, obviously, he's an unbelievably elite athlete at the top of his game, but I think he's one of us. He properly loves cycling for cycling. And that statement is basically him saying, we do things because we are the top end of pro cycling. And that isn't actually how normal people should or do ride bikes. I bet he's the kind of person that if you said to him, like, oh, what bike should I get? He's obviously going to tell you to buy a Canyon because he has to. But he would probably say, get an endurance bike because it's more appropriate. The stuff that we do is actually bonkers. I think he's one of those guys.
It's true.
And I think that statement sums it up. He's always going to ride a road bike on that event because he is riding it to win the event. Whereas I bet if he went there with his friends and family for a jolly, he'd probably be on a mountain bike.
Oh, if you ride a little bit slower, a gravel bike at least. The cobbles, the Roubaix cobbles are honestly like this big
Boulders.
for the viewers at home. They're absolutely
And for
huge.
the non-viewers,
And the
about the
gaps-
size of a brick.
bigger than a
house
brick. Well,
brick.
but like
A breeze block.
not uniform either. And the gaps in between, there'll be like cobbles missing.
Yep.
Like, people like they just get messed up by
Stolen.
traffic or stolen. Yeah. And the gaps in between are absolutely huge. Which is why if you watch it, a lot of the riders will ride in the gutter if you can.
Yeah.
Because it's faster. And that's more gravelly than a lot of the gravel people would want to use gravel bikes for in the UK. Like it is pretty extreme.
Yeah, he said going in Arenberg at 65 kilometers an hour has nothing to do with skill. It's just hoping the bike holds it. So there you go. What was the original question? The Spring Classics, overrated, underrated?
They're quite well rated. I think they're underrated. I think they're wicked.
Considering how popular the Tour de France is,
Yeah.
they are underrated in that if you compare it.
Yes.
Yeah,
agreed,
I think so too. I've thoroughly enjoyed watching them this year.
It's just hard. Like the Paris-Roubaix is known as the hardest bike race, one-day bike race there is. Because of the terrain and just it's brutal. It's so long.
Yeah.
And there's not like a long bit of basically neutralized breakaway section. The selection starts to happen fairly early on. It's a fight the whole way through. It's a cool race.
Next up, the gym. That's not me. That's going to the gym.
Overrated. I don't understand why so many people do it when you can just lift weights at home or do mobility or do resistance stuff in your own house, and you don't have to go there.
Well, typically the gym equipment is expensive. So
Do you need all that stuff though?
well, even having like a set of weights and like a bench or whatever is going to set you back.
100 quid.
No, it's more than 100 quid.
Nah, you can get a bench for 50 quid off Amazon, and you can get a bunch of weights which are
Maybe for the weights
fine
that you're
for most
pushing,
people.
but for the sort of stuff that I need to push,
You're basic. Yeah, you are like
I need
Arnie.
a 300 quid bench so that it can handle the 200 kilos for
Ronnie
my bench
Coleman.
press.
Jimmy doesn't even lift the weights anymore. He just lifts the whole machine.
It's sick. Yeah.
It's like just lifting the house.
But the thing is, gym memberships are expensive.
Yeah,
Really
that's what
expensive.
I mean. And then you got loads of people there who are like in the way and sweaty and like you get sick and I just
it's
you're
changing.
touching. Nah.
There's quite a lot of gyms in this country now that are like 10 quid a month. And they're like really good gyms, very well set out.
The LA gym's pretty cheap that Danny goes to. That's like that kind of price.
Two reasons for going to the gym are, if you're paying for it, you kind of, in some cases, you go, well, I'm paying for it, so I should make the effort to use it.
Yeah.
And also, the best gym period of my life was about 12 years ago, and I used to go every lunchtime with two guys I worked with, and because there was three of us, there was always two other people going like, nah, you're not going down the pub or going down the gym.
Accountability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is, and also just like ideas. Like you'd be like, right, well, I get bored of doing the same stuff over and over. Whereas one of my mates would be like, actually, we're going to do this today. Yeah, cool. Let's try something new.
I can see the appeal if people working in an office or even working from home, it's a separate event in the day, isn't it? You're going somewhere to do this thing and you're focused on it without any distractions. Whereas I suppose I'm not really attracted to that idea because I'm outside so much. I'm either riding a bike or I'm on a, cycling Malaysia. When I go home, I do anything to not leave the house just for just a few days. I just want a few days of being indoors, and working out in my front room is what I want to do. So it depends on the person, doesn't it? Still overrated. Isn't it weird that we've had to put in a human life has become so sedentary that we have to make a room where there's lots of heavy things to pick up and put down to be healthy?
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
Because all we do is this, tapping on a keyboard, and that's work.
Well, some people don't. Some people have manual jobs.
True. Not enough people.
Next up, Aaron Taylor Johnson as James Bond. So there's been some talk about him being the James Bond. I think it was speculated. I think some people actually announced it, and then it was then said, actually, no, it hasn't been officially announced, but there's been a lot of talk that he is very likely to be the next James Bond.
So I listen to a lot of podcasts, but I listen to an entertainment podcast that's like Industry Insiders, and they were saying that apparently, every so often there will be like so-and-so's tip to be the next James Bond, Idris Elba or Tom Hiddleston or whatever it is. Sometimes that's actually put out by their own PR company.
Oh, very clever.
Knowing that it will never happen, and if you say it's definitely not going to happen, but it gets people talking about the person and it gets them roles. So I heard Jimmy was going to be the next James Bond.
Well, maybe we should do one. It's like Francis is signed with Team Ineos to race, I don't know, something, the Olympics.
I don't know, does it have to be believable to race the Olympics?
With Team Ineos,
yeah. I mean, I'm not sure that one will stick. But anyway, so who knows whether this was put out by...
Work on that idea.
by his own PR or not, but would you like to see him as the next James Bond?
I've only seen him in Kick-Ass.
My first thought was no, but I think he actually could be quite good for it. He's an all right actor. You don't need to be a great actor to be James Bond because not a single one of them has ever been a great actor. Arguably, Pierce Brosnan was probably the best one.
Pretty good.
He actually is an actor that became James Bond, whereas all of the others were either heartthrobs or physically there because of the physical side of it. Like Sean Connery, he was there because he's just like, he was 50s, 60s, 70s sex icon.
Which one's Craig to you? I would argue he was neither.
No, he's there because he had the physique, he had the act.
He did not have the physique.
He did for Bond.
But he had to do it.
Yeah.
When they hired him, he was like a skinny guy in layer cake.
But my point is, he was hired to be an action star, not to be a heartthrob, and he nailed that. Aaron, what's his name?
Taylor Johnson.
Aaron Taylor Johnson is a good-looking guy. He's got the physique. He can do action stuff. He's an all-right actor, but he's not fantastic. He's can be very posh, which is linked perfectly to James Bond. But he's also in films where he's actually just a bit raw as well, which I think is quite appropriate for a modern James Bond. I think he could be very good. So I'm going to say that is...
Underrated.
Do
you know what? I was just looking at what he's been in. I know him from Kick-Ass. I know him from Angus Thongs and Perfect Snogging, which is, if you're...
He's in Savages. Savages, if you haven't seen it, anyone listening, watching this, Savages is it's a really, really good film, and he is a great character in it.
Godzilla, apparently he's in. Yeah. Oh, Nowhere Boy. That's a crap film. Sorry.
Well, he is in a lot of junk, to be fair.